11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
Well, that ended pretty quick. So, welcome everybody to Daily Gun Show. Come to you live on weeknights at midnight Eastern. That's 9 p.m. in my neck of the woods. So it might be late for some of y'all, but it's not very late for me. And anybody on the West Coast, it's kind of the evening for us. So if you're joining us live, welcome. And each night we have a different kind of theme. Mondays is motivation. As activists, it's sometimes difficult to be motivated in the times when you're not necessary, or it's not what you're interested in isn't urgent or important or popular at the time, trending. And when it is important and when it is apt, right, when it's time to get on board and do stuff, it's frustrating because it can be difficult when all hands on deck. You know, it means you got to drop everything. It means you got to drop everything and get on deck, right? That's not always possible, and it's not always convenient for sure. In fact, it's almost as if the adversaries tend to do things when you're not ready, expecting it, or able to react. Maybe they do it at a time when they understand there's enough stressors to keep people from supporting the few that are paying attention or able. And all those things can add up and cause stress and frustration and tension. And those are the things that give people pause and reflection on what they're doing and if it's time to keep going or not. And you'll see this if you're spending any time paying attention to anything. There's going to be the people that come and go. There's going to be the people that didn't sign up for this, or that didn't expect it to go this way, or just don't have enough in them to do it, whatever. Things can change, and they might have all the ambition and ableness in the world, but then stuff falls out from under them, stuff hits them from the top, too much weight on their shoulders. Health can knock out from under people. We're all humans. So we've got the trials and tribulations of being humans and all that entails. So anyway, so that's what I'm going to talk about today. And I don't have a script or nothing. I don't have the answers, that's for sure. If you turn into this show for answers, then let me know what you think. But if you're watching live, it does show we have a couple of people watching live. You're welcome to comment. I do these live as opposed to produced, so that you have an opportunity to interact. The conversation, the interactivity is what makes it interesting, as opposed to some kind of pre-programmed package. I'm sure there's all kinds of scripts out there, all kinds of plans or strategies to keep motivated or stay motivated. Discipline, I like, is a good one. Or I find discipline is a good one. It's an easy one. But if anybody wants to throw some stuff in there about what are in the text, what keeps you motivated or what gets you motivated, feel free. That might get somebody else to participate as well. And if you're writing something in the comments wherever you find this video after the fact, then it's possible we'll get some conversation started, at some future time. So with that, like I say, I'm not really here to offer answers, because I don't know if there is an answer for something like how do you stay motivated over time. So that's going to change as the human changes and the circumstances are going to be come into play, and some things are going to be effective today which might not be effective, and what's effective when you're young is not effective when you're old, and vice versa. Let's see what else we got going on. This is motivated. Today's topic is motivated by the email I sent out. I guess since nobody's saying anything, I'll just blab a little bit and wrap it up. Sent out email back to respond to some presentations that I was thinking about doing later on in the year. And as opposed to not doing the presentations if they don't want me to, I'll just do them anyway. That's all I ever do anyway. So I just figured I'd kind of use this show to get started on that. So the first one would be the history and evolution of Second Amendment activism and why that matters in 2022. This is for a group of people that are activists and are activists in 2022. And since it's not consistent, we don't have just one set of activists. We don't have one story that activists come to the table with. There's not one origin story, I guess. Then that means, there's new, there's old, there's experienced, there's naive, there's ambitious, and there's everything else in between in there. So briefly talking about the actual history of it, there's some waves, there's some trends and things I always talk about, and having all that just somehow visually represented is to give everyone a common ground so that they know their place in history. I think that's important. Too many people think that they're the only ones doing anything or they're the first ones to do anything. And it's almost always an eye-opener for some people to realize that they're literally doing what their grandparents did, or they're doing something very similar to what their great-great-grandparents did. And it might not obviously be the same exact circumstances, but it might be the same situation. So with that, knowing where we are and how big a role or what slice we play right now, what potential role we play as activists, individuals, and groups, and to be aware of where we're at, or any individual who might be receiving this info, where they might be in compared to the big picture and how that's changed over the time. And hopefully that gives them some inspiration and some motivation, because that's why I called this, that's why I thought this was a good topic for Motivation Monday. Because the goal there is to understand that it's flux, it's fluid, that the gains that we've had and the losses that we've experienced aren't predestined. They're not written somewhere and we're just following through a script. Instead, they're the results and consequences of actions or inactions, right? Awareness, people using riffs of intolerance and inexperience and lack of knowledge against groups of people. And we can fight that in multiple waves with multiple groups of people who have multiple interests. And there's quite a few people, at least in my experience in the past, who've efforted towards getting activists united or in step, at least singing the same tune maybe, but that's not necessarily the only option we've got, and it's not actually ever worked, or at least doesn't work very often. So waiting for that to happen is a frustrating or not necessarily the only option we got. So anyway, the idea of knowing what all has happened and where we're at in there, that would be the part that why it matters in 2022. See, there are some people commenting. Let me go over here. Thanks for that. Wood just saying, I remind myself that if it is worthy to do, it is often hard. That's a good point. In other words, the easy things seems frivolous or insignificant, so often, less satisfying. It's a good point. And if they hand it to you, there's just some suspect to that too, right? How valuable is it to the other person? The history, it's me. I guess that's no point in pointing that. Let's see. Then, in addition, the sky is either always falling or it is never falling. That's interesting. I guess that's true. In other words, you're saying that if it isn't falling, then it isn't falling. It doesn't sometimes fall. It might not. It's not. Oh, I just fall tomorrow or something. I think that's what you're saying. Once you get past that, in other words, maybe is that what you're saying? It's like an eye opener, or once the veil comes off, what's behind the screen or whatever. Like once you realize that it isn't falling, then you realize the sky is just there. Let's see. DJ is saying, when I'm weary of the same two-way conversations with the same group of folks, and a great rejuvenation for me is to have dialogues with new acquaintances. Oh yeah, I hear that. I do that myself, and can't do that completely because then you're never in with any groups or anything, and you're always just that wandering one. But yeah, that's a super critical role, and if it helps keep your batteries charged in the process, then nothing wrong with that. But like I said, I don't think that we wouldn't do good with just that, right? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. A 48 or more hour break from all the news is a great way to relax. I guess depends on how much you pay attention to the news. I get my news almost exclusively from others now, so I don't really ever watch the news or anything. I definitely never just turn on the news. The only closest thing I get to that is if I'm skimming a radio, changing channels on a radio, and I stop on something. I mean, I'll never stop on sports, but I'll stop on something. Maybe I think it's the weather, or maybe it's some interesting, you know, news that isn't political news, and then let's stick some political news in there somehow, or maybe you're listening to music and they'll stop, for a break, and they'll do some kind of news. That's about the closest thing I get to hearing the news. So I get mine from other people, and that gives, if you talk to enough different people, I feel you get some different perspective on it. So you're going to hear news that came from multiple sources, and now you've got your own friends or people's um, filter on it. So they're going to sum it all up and filter it to what they understand it. I find that's it works for me, and I don't have to challenge anybody. I can just absorb it. When I run into someone who's new to firearms, it's always great to share their enthusiasm. That's a good one. I agree. Play devil as advocate. It can be a little frustrating after a while. That's why I don't necessarily only surf the new channels, because just enthusiasm is enthusiasm by itself. Experience, is maybe the other side of enthusiasm, or um, I don't know what the other word would be, but the other side of enthusiasm is also enjoyable. So it's difficult to get into a conversation with a bunch of people who are good friends or have known each other for a long time or whatever, unless it happens to be just observing a live conversation. But you know what I'm saying? I think those can also be useful. And if we think of ourselves as activists, as individuals, then having conversations with the inexperienced that are enthusiastic and the old folks who are all set in their ways and crotchety allows you to take ideas from both and seed the other, right? And I'm assuming that's a good thing. The last time the sky was fine, I realized it was just rain, yeah, or snow. It's not really a crisis every time. That's for sure. And I think that's something that is that a what's it saying, that it's not always a crisis? That's why I say in the sky's not always falling. I wonder if that's something that with wisdom you get, like with age, that comes, or number of times you've gone. How many times you've been to the, what do they say? It's not my first time at the rodeo. How many times you've been to the rodeo? You don't have to be old to have gone through this rodeo a bunch of times, but maybe just how many times you're even paying attention to the rodeo. These things happen constantly, and not everybody's paying attention to them. So if everybody's just got it on their radar, even though it's the third or fourth time around, it might be the first time around for them. That's a facet of this that I noticed that we're dealing with, especially like with DJ. So when you're going around looking at new conversations with new people, this is the first time they've had a slight. This is the first time they've had a real black eye, perhaps, or wouldn't even know if it's a black eye yet. A swing and a hit, a connection, and you slap somebody, and some people are done. Other people don't even feel the first slap because they're bracing for the punches that are inevitably coming, or that they're ready for at least. And the people that leave the ring after the first slap, or that leave the get out of the fight after the first slap, they don't ever know what was coming next. If it was a complete surrender, or if it's an all-out abuse. Do you really think what we're looking at right now is somebody that's got all-out abuse coming, or a bunch of tactics in reserve, or is this just their lashing out slap? This isn't the Anyway, I don't want to get too much into today's stuff, but yeah. You did not list that the sky is falling moments, Y2K, 1999, war, famine, plague. Oh yeah, you're talking about. I've seen that list, and I know we've tried to summarize some stuff like that in the past for other people. I think that was just for the crisis and the stress the last couple of years. We tried to do that, I think. That's only a good sign I'm already yawning. You get older, you can see that it isn't falling. Yeah. When I'm around younger folks, I ask, or I quit asking. Okay, let me say this again. I'll put this on the screen. When I'm around the younger, less experienced folks, I quit making statements and ask only questions. That's pretty wise. That's one of them kung fu things that must be valid because it's been verified in lots of kung fu movies. So that's I. Do you think Woods has a good point here, everyone? Does this seem like a good way to go, everyone? What do you think? So anyway, that's the first one: history, evolution, and 2A activism, and why that matters in 2022. The second topic would be, if they choose it and I'm asked to do it, evaluating your reach, resources, and value as an individual 2A activist. Because, unfortunately, the only people I'll be talking to are individuals who value their potential and are willing to effort as individuals. They might have some help, they may have some motivation or guidance, and they might have some group that helps them as well. I mean, we all have some version of that or all of it, but they're all individuals. There's no Russian, some sort of, I don't know what they'd call it, facility that grabs little babies from the perfect specimen parents and then puts all those little baby 2A activists in some kind of a training regimen, eating the perfect foods and doing all kinds of exercises every day and quizzing them mentally and physically on a constant basis so that when they're ready, they go out into the world as Second Amendment advocates, just slaying bad bills and making victories for individual human civil rights. But since that's not the case, it's a bunch of people doing their own thing on their own dime, on their own time, trying to juggle their family lives, their financial obligations, their future, what they're able to do. I mean, it gets back to a little bit of motivation, right? A little bit of realistic awareness of what's possible. And if that drop thinks it's responsible for the flood, right? The drop has to become part of the lake. The drop has to become part of the body of water that becomes the flood. It's not a drop anymore. It's really communist-ish if you look at it from some angles. So we don't want to turn into Borg or something. On the other hand, there's a lot of decisions you make as an individual activist. You know, it's not like we're signing up for a sports team, and when you sign up for the 2A sports team, you get to wear their colors and you get to get their paycheck and you get to get their big severance package or retirement situation. You know, it's a lot of sacrifice for what you consider the greater reach or the greater value or the greater good or whatever. And if that's the case, then I'm not going to answer. I'll be able to offer motivation or answers to that other than to try to focus on some things that an individual might not maybe somebody wouldn't realize as an individual, that we've got we've got things out there, resources and resources out there, let's just put it that way. And then last one would be, we got some direction now what to do with the rest of the year. I guess what I'm going to say for that one is the whole idea of doing something on a more regular basis. Is meeting up once a year ain't cutting it. You know how I know? Because we still have an NFA. You know how I know? Because the organizations don't work together. If getting together once a year physically was enough, we'd be done and we wouldn't have to get together at all. So I know it doesn't work because we're still living under infringements. We know it doesn't work because everyone isn't pissed about what happens in Nebraska today, or everyone's not cheering about what happened in Connecticut today. So that part of it is there's so much to talk about there, but part of this show is part of that answer to that, doing something consistently, even when there's other things going on or when there's nothing going on, so that there's, I don't know why. Why do you do this? Why do you do stuff? I guess that's the whole point about today's show, motivation and is there another one besides motivation? Motivation for keeping going with this stuff. Let's see. So then I guess I was asking the folks where I posted this, which one you think they'll pick. DJ was thinking, I could think up some. GJ was thinking, my bet is their selection would be the historical take. Would I be interested in your suggestions for the future direction? Did I have future in here? I guess you could call that last one the future, I guess. But the history one, I think I don't think that's the most important one. I think that one is, for me, interesting. But do you need to know where you came from, or what's already happened, if you can win today and walk away and just, like, if the net effect is that we win, does the person who made the win need to be a well-rounded? No, not at all. So I don't think that's critical or nothing. But on the other hand, there's something to be said for those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. And by just mentioning some stuff, giving people an idea where we stand on a timeline, it gives us some scale and perspective on how big issues might be in reality and how little they might be compared to stuff that our predecessors dealt with. And knowing that your predecessors wailed on saber-toothed tigers makes it a little easier to fight with a mountain lion, maybe, unless you're just terrified of mountain lions, or you're so terrified of mountain lions, a little kitten, little baby fluffy kitten's gonna come up and you're gonna poop yourself and run out of the room. That's the case. That's some people, and they're right. They got a right to do that. But like I say, once you figure out that grandparents were wailing on saber-toothed tigers that were big as a bear, except they were cats, and they still somehow got through it, and we exist. They don't. Saber-toothed tigers don't. That tells us that our grandparents were mean to saber-toothed tigers, and they made them go extinct, and we should give up all of our rights because something bad happened in the past. That's one of those things that they use against us, I think. And anyway, I'm rambling now, so let's see if anybody's got anything else. Let's see. Tomorrow's promise to no one. I guess that's a good point. There will never be a day when we are finished, champion crowned. That's a good point too, and I think that's part of motivation. I think some people come into it with the concept that they don't really think about the end game, and if you don't think about the end game, but for some reason you thought there would be an end, and at some point of the way through it, you go, "Oh, wait a minute, there is no end to this," and you might look around and go, "Nobody here is waiting for the celebration like me. I don't know if I got anything in common with these folks, so I'm going to go where we're destined to a celebration. People that just wait around for celebrations can find them." So that's definitely a facet. So being realistic with expectations, I guess, is part of motivation, but it's a boring part of motivation. What if it's just all wins? It's real easy to be motivated when it's just win, 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 win. With the history from that is a huge part where you show what has already been tried. I think so. And sometimes I think too, when you just talk about reality instead of, Santa Claus or, you talk about hard reality versus soft reality. How about that? Like, things that might actually, or things that have already happened versus things that might happen, or the way it could be, or that kind of thing, or just fantasy. When you're it's like reading nonfiction or watching a documentary versus Star Wars or something. So even if you're not getting something specifically from the content you're listening to or that's being presented or something, it might get the ball rolling. Well, that didn't work, but this, or, they did it this way, but wait a minute, what if you flipped it around backwards and went the other way? Then it would be just putting itself all back together and it would be easy. Some people just need that extra look at it. Then time goes on. So you talk about something that people did back in the day, and it's like, well, it was impossible to do, and everybody quit trying. And then you think, well, wait a minute, it would have been real easy when there was telephones, and now we have cell phones, so it would have been even easier. And if somebody made an app, you don't even have to do it. You just have to run it backwards and flip it upside down, and it all puts itself back together. That's the kind of stuff that comes up from occasionally from hearing a description of, again, real life or history of what people have accomplished or done. And then sometimes you hear about what somebody done and you're like, that guy's a big jerk, or she's an idiot, and I could have done it better than that. And then three minutes later, you did figure out a way to do it better than that. And then you can show them. They think they're so good, and now you figured it out better. So sometimes maybe your motivation is being better than somebody. Maybe it's your little brother or your big brother, I guess. Or, somebody thinks they're so good, and then but you got it figured out, and all you need to do is XYZ, right? And now, boom, you're motivated. And if you do that in front of people, that can motivate people too, I suppose. What do you think about just sprucing up your abilities too? Sometimes putting a new paint job on something in a pressurized booth, with good airflow, is all you need. And you can take what was a blotchy, crappy paint job that would be, metric paint job, okay, in Europe or something, but turn that into a decent paint job that you would be proud of in this country. Closer to one of my old radio shows was A Dig We Must, and I try to dig every day for inspiration, truth, never stop digging. Interesting. That sounds like an England thing. They're always digging holes in England, trying to get off that island. Lifelong learner. That's an interesting. I don't know if you were going with that, but motivating, or another motivation could be to either educate or learn, right? So that's a good point. Some people who are just interested in learning a new facet of something. And I can actually think of a couple of people right now, humans that I know. And maybe have I met them? I'm trying to think if I've even met a couple of these people. But there's probably a couple of people in our midst who you may have known already, who came into this as not gun people, but just people who are minding their business, and then were not even adjacent to guns, just somewhere else, somewhere separate from guns. And when they got to a point in their life, they're like, wait a minute, they came, adjacent to guns, and they started thinking about it, and they were either incredibly pissed off or questioned or amazed that we live under this tyranny, because there's quite a bit of tyranny that lives between or under the or as a result of the communication gap. Well, maybe that's the right word, communication gap, where people that don't know the nomenclature, people that aren't familiar with the culture, people that only see the bad and are told that only horrible people would appreciate these bad, horrible things. Those people have never had an opportunity to hear anything other than that. So you can get some real motivation out of just getting an opportunity to change their mind, or give them some awareness and some illumination. I like that word. I don't use that one enough. All right. Well, with that, I definitely feel like I'm blabbing. I don't really need to do this show. After this, I might start early now, because it sounds like I'll wrap this one up early. But after this, on the big channel, I'm just going to read the 345 pages of the stupid new garbage, so that it's there, for anybody who's too lazy to want to read it themselves or can't read or whatever. Plus, I need to read it, and I'm not going to read it twice. So I'll read it the one time, and then I can always listen to myself say it again if I have to. I don't know if anybody else has read it yet, but if I'll be the first, then I'll be the first. Otherwise, I'll be the next to read the dang thing. And that'll be, something where people can go freak out or have a fit about it or whatever. But we've got continual, what do they say? Eternal fight for liberty. Liberty requires eternal vigilance. So, the motivation and the um, ability to continue on is a skill set that's doesn't just happen. At least I'm not aware of anybody who's just automatically motivated. And it's easy to be automatically motivated to eat chocolate. Then, yeah, it can be a pain in the butt. There are many things that we study just because. I found I hate guns for like 6 months. You never know who's watching. Um, I'm not saying, I don't know what you, I guess I don't get what you're saying. I think you're just saying like you were hanging out and listening before you said anything. I think you've mentioned that before. I think that's what you're trying to say there. It's kind of tough sometimes in the texts, but Woods is saying that there's many things that we study just because. Oh yeah, for sure. And I think as you get older or just start to learn and enjoy the learning different facets of things, then guns is an interesting one, and it's certainly you don't have to pull a trigger. I haven't pulled triggers in a long time. Just pulling triggers for pulling triggers. Um, I don't know. I just don't have that much interest. And if there's time or whatever bullets available, let somebody who's never pulled a trigger before shoot it, unless I need to anymore. I don't have the uh, desire to just go to like a rental place and shoot them, or go to one of these events and just pull them to pull them. It's interesting, but I felt a lot of differences in recoil and differences in dwell and all that kind of stuff, and aware of it. But yeah, um, uh, I found more interest in studying the other aspects of guns, and there's a couple of people out there that aren't into guns, but it's tough to find nowadays. Most people that you find are into guns are going to be into shooting defensively and doing whatever they call training nowadays, which is also interesting uh, to dig into and to watch develop. But as far as motivation, I guess that's another one. You've got, I guess that was one of the things I put in my mental notes actually for the show was the competition shooters and hunters, now that I'm thinking about it. And maybe, oh, wait a minute, you know what? And the industry. So manufacturers and inventors, all these folks need motivation. Competition people, if they're not winning, what's their motivation, right? Just to improve on themselves, to do better for their kids or their brother or sister or something? Are they performing because it's an obligation to a family or a group or something? Or they got friends that they're you know there's lots of things that can motivate somebody into on the that side. And then when you get into the extremes, practicing versus when to not practice and go play around, like there's a lot of motivation there. You get into hunting, what's your motivation to get out there and go look for one of them critters when you could just as easily go to the store and buy a thing of Twinkies? Tastes better, it's easier to grab, and you can put another Twinkie in your pocket when you're not eating it. It's real hard to put half a elk in your pocket when you're not eating it and not be gross. So motivation there, motivation to keep sitting at that blind or keep sitting on that spot, even though nothing's come by, but you've seen that sign or you have that feeling or you smelled something. You could, you were sure you smelled something the other morning when you were there. So it's worth sitting there and seeing if that's the case or not. Motivated to get up and get out there in the middle of the freaking morning or night or whenever it is. You got to get up to get out so that you can get there before the dang critters are awake. People don't even know. People think hunting is like some version of a picnic that they went on where you bring guns with you, and they think you're talking the whole damn time. Oh, you went out hunting with your friends, so you guys must know a whole bunch about each other. No, not really. Like we're in the same 4-acre area maybe for a while, quietly, and then talked a little bit while we were cutting the guts out of these critters, but that's about it. So yeah, there's a lot of motivation that's out there in the community, and bringing together those motivations. What's the potential there? When you've got competition shooters sharing their ability to concentrate or their ability to pick targets, or their ability to quickly game a stage and then immediately lose that information and go on to the next stage, or to do exceedingly well or poor, horribly bad in one stage or in one event, and continue on and potentially win a bigger event. How much of that motivation is being used in Second Amendment? How much of that is being used to motivate our Second Amendment advocates? How many of those advocates are thinking of it like a sport, or like a thing that you would have coaches for? Are there coaches, or do we meet once a year, say hey to each other, and then get back out there, make your own money, pay for your own trip home, and then keep doing your own thing? That can be the antithesis to motivation. How frustrating is it when you get all motivated because you have a clear path and you think you've got a good idea and you're ready and willing, but you can't do it. There's no way to take that much time off of work. You can't go drive over there and do that. You're certainly not going to be able to fly and be able to take the kids with you or whatever. So, I guess that good idea just gets thrown in the thing and nobody else is, around. So how many of these things aren't we aware of because the motivation was there, but not the rest? Whose fault is it? Who do you blame? So motivation's fun because I think you don't get motivated until you're past the blame. I think when you're content to sit around and blame, that replace motivation? You don't need motivation when you're content, when you're complacent. Is that the right word? When you're content to blame somebody else for whatever did or didn't happen. So motivated to understand and to realize that we each have, that same idea, that the bunch of drops getting together is a puddle, a bunch of puddles getting together is a muddy blood, is a muddy mess, and a bunch of muddy messes together becomes a stream, and all them streams together becomes a big lake, and then that lake keeps getting bigger, and eventually that mountain is knocked over, and no drip or drop gets to stand up and go, hey, mountain, suck on that. But every drop was responsible for it. And yeah, that's really communist. It's really weird to get behind that, but there must be a better way. Somebody can motivate somebody to get a way to say that better. That doesn't sound so communist. Blade of grass, that every blade of grass, maybe that's the way to do it. Let's see. I think that's about it. Woods is saying get up, drive, hike, kayak, build a blind, hunt, sit still, calls, rain, swamp. Yep, that's duck hunting. I don't even know how you do it because at least out here, you drag a blanket or something, and if it's cold, you can sit under a blanket. But when you're sitting in water, I don't think that's as easy. But every year, 2 to 5 dudes want to go hunt. Do they expect the 2A to pay their dues? I don't get this. Every year, 2 to 5 dudes want to go hunt. What does that mean? It's similar to 2A. Do we expect the new 2A to pay their dues? I don't know what you mean about that, but when dudes go hunting, I guess you're saying that there's some sort of experience that you got to get. So if you're saying that new people want to come along, and then the question is, do they got to pay their dues? I think it goes back to whoever said something about being motivated or not, or whether or not you appreciate what's given to you. If you are joining an organization and you're just welcomed in because they welcome everybody in, and everything you say is brilliant because everything everybody says is brilliant, did they really welcome you? And did they really think anything's brilliant? Or do they just never say anything's bad? I'm going to stop short of being like, oh, people have to be mean to each other, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, having some, I don't want to say some tradition, some set of challenges, some sort of structure for, what's the word? Like gaining rank, like in normal organizations, you're going to join, you're going to read some prerequisites to join sometimes. And then once you've met a certain amount of points or whatever, then you get to the next level, and then such time and grade and such achievements, and you get to the next level and so forth. And then levels are typically thresholds for responsibilities and that kind of thing. And I think that's a vetting system to find out who's actually in it for the long run, people that are interested in sticking around, so that you also have people who have had some experience with the organization in positions of authority, or positions to be able to affect anything, so that you don't just get some yahoo with delusions and 9mm jumping in and taking the controls and just running it straight into the ground. And I think that's why most organizations put some kind of structure in there like that. So to that part, I think you got to have pay your dues as something. But as far as like pay your dues, like you got to deal with hazing or deal with harsh treatment or something because bullies, are need to do something bully like. No, that part I don't think is all that good, and that probably is less motivating. On the other hand, some people who dig that stuff, they get all kind of less allured, whatever the word is, whenever they don't experience that stuff. So imagine there's probably some medium between, here's the path, and if you want to go through everything, then walk down it, and you come out the other side with a little bit more, esprit de corps. Or if you're too scared or whatever, you can't bend over or something, then go sit on the bench over there, and you'll be a member. You'll just not get the little wink, wink, nudge, nudge, member. But on the other hand, there's a bunch of people who cry about that. So what are you going to do? That's the spin-off shit that we got to get past, right? We just have to learn. That's the same thing when you go to a picnic and somebody's like, I don't like eating barbecue because barbecue is disgusting, right? And then there's somebody like, oh, I can't eat coleslaw because coleslaw makes my nose peel or whatever. So, what do? Do we never eat barbecue, or do we not have picnics? Probably don't invite that person, or you come up with that thing where they take marshmallows and put it in mayonnaise with coconuts or whatever they do. And then does people eat that? That's what that was invented for. So hopefully that's what we come up with for motivation, is communication and awareness of each other, and a nice buffet instead of a rigid menu. And then you allow seasonal items to be taken, eat locally, and hopefully people start to appreciate the flavor, and they leave the ketchup and the other garbage on the shelf and enjoy the whatever the chef prepared. And in that case, then the chef gets motivated. People are motivated to show up to the buffet. Everybody's happy. It's fed. People are healthier, and it's capitalism, so everybody's richer also. So 2A buffet, maybe that's the way to keep everybody motivated. Everything 2A from now on happens at a buffet. Oh, sorry, where to hunt? I won't hunt beside you. Well, that's weird. I guess I'm not sure about what you mean with that, I guess. I wouldn't want somebody to get lost or something, or stand in front of the wrong place or something like that. But I don't know. It's like duck hunting. When we're hunting out here, it's a little bit different because you're basically just walking around. But I do think that I'm not even catching them all. I mean, I can't think of, maybe 9mm shooters don't have nothing to add to the mix, but everybody else could probably add something. I'm thinking even like taxidermists or something. There's lots of photographers, right? Like there's reloaders. They probably bring something to the thing as far as what keeps them motivated. They've had to deal with some crazy up and downs with shortages and scarcities. What about politicians? They're worthless, but they probably have to have a whole different level of motivation. They don't really think they're all getting rich. And I'm sure some of them think they're doing, they want to be doing good or whatever. And then they got to go hang out with the Pelosi's and the Feinsteins and the Bloombergs and people. That's a whole nother level of motivation. All right. Well, now we've definitely gone for a while. I guess I'm going to wrap it up. And, well, I'm not sure if I should make some coffee or not. How long do you think it'll take to read 345 pages? It's going to take a little while, I imagine. Anyway, I'm going to do it without comments, so you're welcome to join in as it's live. And listen, but it's really just going to be a document for people that want to hear it, instead of reading it, or they got some kind of issues and can't read it, or for the whoever wants to read it or have it read. Yeah, right. That would be great. Well, actually, it's going to be a lot longer than that because I can't read a page a minute, so I don't think. So it'll be a little while. Hopefully, it won't be tomorrow morning, but it'll be a while. All right. Well, with that, thanks everybody for showing up, and we'll be back to pick you up later. Oh, there's Daniel out there. He did say that a bunch of times, I think. I didn't watch. I watched about a quarter of it, and then I had stuff I'm doing today, and I went back to look at it, and I just I kind of thumbed through, and sure enough, he said it like 3 times. All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for showing up live. Leave us comments wherever you happen to find the video, and until next time, thanks for watching.
GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com.
Thank you for supporting our projects. If you'd like to buy us a cup of coffee, check out our Patreon channel.
The guys and gals at GunWebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thank you for watching GunWebsites.com.